Hey everyone. Welcome to Radiating Love. I am Ronnie Lipstein and I am blessed to be here with you today. Namaste in Lakesh Alakin, which for those who are not aware, Namaste means that which is the divine within me sees that which is the divine within you. And in Lakesh Alakin is a Mayan saying which means that I am another you. We are one. So, hence why I like to open and close with the acknowledgement and appreciation and gratitude for you choosing to be here today and to share in expanding love consciousness, ascending out of fear consciousness, as it were, where we're coming from. I'm using some words that for some are quite big and foreign insofar as how they relate to everyday life, and that's actually what we are going to be talking about today. The ABCs of Ascension, K.I.S.S, which stands for Keep It Simple, Sweetheart. When I was younger, it used to have a different S at the end, but I like sweetheart much better, don't you? So before we get into the specifics regarding Ascension and the ABCs there too, and keeping in mind that there is much to discuss in relation to Ascension and transcendence and enlightenment and consciousness. And we are going to briefly touch upon a few things in today's show. We shan't be able to get into everything, but if you're out there and you're watching today live, and there is a concept, a word, an idea that you would like to simplify and have been pondering and playing with yourself, please do share. You can do that just over here. There is the chat and social stream buttons by which you can interact with me live right now during the show. If you're watching the recording of this show, there is below me a comment section where you can share your comments, and again, if there is something that you have been contemplating, pondering, playing with, a concept, an idea, a thought, a word, a philosophical perspective, and you would like to try to simplify it, please do write in the comments below, because we do read them and we do respond to them. So we will be able to get to you one way or the other. All right, wonderful. So before we actually get into any specifics, what I am going to do now is light some sage. And sage is known to be a cleansing and healing plant. And I like to light it at the beginning of our experience, our journey together here, with the intention of clearing any negativity that we are coming in to the show with, whatever we are coming from, whatever's going on in our lives, to let that go and to open ourselves to receiving the inspirations as they come from love, as opposed to anything that may be weighing down on you right now from life in general. So for this hour or so, if we can release everything else and just be completely and utterly present here. So just let everything else kind of slip away. You can get back to it in an hour. It'll still be there. And commit ourselves to being present in the here and the now. of this experience, of this show, of this communion between myself and yourself, and all of the other wonderful earth angels divine who are joining us here today. All right, so the ABCs of Ascension. So what exactly are we speaking to here? As I said just a few moments ago, when talking, there's a lot of different languages, and by languages I'm not meaning different languages like English, French, Italian, for example. I'm saying within the same language, we'll use English because that's what I'm speaking, there are different languages used depending upon the industry, the subject matter that you're talking about. For example, you would rarely hear a mechanic talking about brain surgery. And the different tools that the brain surgeon uses are very different from that which the mechanic uses. Different words, different language. And sometimes, within the same field, you have different people calling the same things by different words. And so you've got this mishmash of language that is being utilized to describe something that can lead those who are novices, as well as extraordinarily experienced beings in whatever it is that that subject matter, industry, topic happens to be, into a bit of confusion. So I'm going to try today to take some of the bigger words that we use, the bigger concepts that we use with respect to consciousness when we're talking about spirituality, which some people use the term to connote what we're speaking to today. What some of those terms actually mean in the most simplistic of manners. Because the reality is that we tend to, as a species, as human beings, make things much more complicated than they actually are. And in that complication creates confusion, creates delays in us actually accomplishing and realizing our goals, in manifesting our objectives. Because we get caught in the web of confusion and we're not really sure what this means or what that means. And it can take us on a very long, winding road that we kind of get lost upon. And then we have to find ourselves back to where we had initially started, which was, generally speaking, with a very simple goal in mind. Of course, I'm using the term simple very loosely here. And to elucidate on that a little bit further, what we say is very simple. Concepts, especially those in considering consciousness, can be extraordinarily simple to discuss, can be extraordinarily simple to comprehend, but the doing, not necessarily quite as simple, and yet again as simple, which we will get into a little bit more as we discuss the ABCs of Ascension today, and I will explain that a little more. It is a bit confusing, I know. However, I can give an example immediately to not leave you standing on the ledge there like that. I know it's not nice. I apologize. So, for example, we often hear be love. That's like the big message for Ascension is to be love. It's very simple to say it. You should be loving. You should be love. Very simple to understand it. It's pretty understandable. We all know being loving is a kindness, compassion, empathy. The doing, as much as we would like it to be simple, and when we make the choice to do it, it is simple, because once you're doing it, so it's simple. But to go from being in a state, for example, of irate anger to being love may not feel quite as simple. And it is the doing where there might be a little bit more of a back and forward. And that is really what our ascension is all about. It is taking that which we consciously, intuitively, inherently know and putting it into practice. And putting it into practice in our day-to-day lives means that we need to look at the consciousness, the thinking, the feeling, from where we're coming that is making it seemingly difficult or giving us this enormous opportunity for growth to get to the being love. So I hope that that kind of explains what I was saying. There's a metaphor I like to use often regarding looking for the light switch in a darkened room. If the room is completely pitch black, it can seem very difficult to find the light switch, or again, as we would like to say here, it's a huge opportunity for growth in that you have to rely on your other senses outside of sight and, you know, intuition and touch and hearing and all these other senses come into play. So great opportunity, but it might feel difficult to find that light switch. And when we find the light switch, turning it on is just a flick of the switch and suddenly it's light. So it's very, very difficult in our perception until we find it, and then the turning it on becomes very simple. So it's difficult and simple all at the same time. Okay, so let's get into some. Again, there are so many concepts that we can get into, but we're going to get into some of the concepts that bring a bit of confusion for a lot of people. So one of these is the concept of unity consciousness, or that we are all one. A lot of people that I speak with regularly, whether it's clients, which I call angel partners, who I journey with, or just people in general who I speak to, you will get comments such as, how is my life in any way intertwined with somebody living halfway across the world? You know, if I'm here in North America, how does my choice of whether I'm going to buy white bread or whole wheat bread going to affect somebody living in Africa? How does my going for a walk in the park going to affect the ecosystem, the birds, the trees, so on and so forth? And it's easy to understand how somebody can have a difficulty with the concept. A lot of people, when they speak to our unity consciousness and they speak to the fact that we are one, are speaking on a much more quintessential, foundational level on energy. And energy can't be chopped up. It has a natural ebb and flow to it. It can't be contained in one unit. The energy that is in each of our bodies, for example, the cells that are in each of our bodies, is completely new every 7 years. They've been saying now every 4 years, but essentially all of the energy that's inside of us is continuously changing as well. There's always a give and a take with energy, and as a result of that, we are all connected, we are all one. But that might be more of a difficult concept to wrap one's head around, let alone to accept. So keeping it simple, sweetheart, we're going to bring it to that which you can't deny, because that's really what we are trying to do here. We want to make it simple. It's not complicated. Ascension, consciousness is not complicated. We've made it complicated. If there's things that you don't understand, then take it to where you can understand. Allow your understanding to expand naturally, as opposed to knocking your head against the wall trying to get something into your brain. The revelations will come naturally. So back to unity consciousness, or the fact that we are all one and all interconnected. if you just look at the fact, and we can break this down into varying things. For example, we can start off with the fact of looking at just us as human beings. We are one species. We are all a member of the one species called human being, or Homo sapien, which is soon changing to Homo luminous, which is very exciting. Yay! But we will get into that another day, or maybe later today. We could too, if we have the time. If you want to take that now beyond our species, because when we speak to the fact that everything is one, we're speaking about everything. And to make this easy and concrete, and getting away from the energy, which is our connection at a level of quintessential essence that simply can't be refuted, but staying at the simple, we all live on one planet. So if we want to get a little bit more grander perspective when speaking about the fact that we are all one, as it is a very grand statement, and look at the cosmos, and the Earth is this one little blue speck in the universe. And of all the hundreds and thousands of trillions of planets and stars and objects in the cosmos, in our universe, we are all on the Earth. And anything that any one of us does is both affected by whatever is affecting the Earth, as well as affecting the Earth itself. And so the person living in North America is connected to the person in South Africa, is connected to the fish in Antarctic, is connected to, and now we're going to go even beyond, the stars in our cosmos. Because if you go out of the Earth and take a bigger look at our Milky Way galaxy, we are all part of the Milky Way galaxy. Hence why when there is a lot of disturbances in the cosmos, we are affected by them. So when you hear people say we are all one, those are all the different things that they are referring to. It's not some kumbaya meditative state of existence. It's simply what is. It's just reality. We are all one. And we are all connected. The unity consciousness, the word consciousness, speaks to us being connected with respect to our thoughts. And that is a little bit more complicated to get into with respect to how that actually functions, because we have to go back to the level of energy, which we don't see. But if I bring it to a more simple level and try to make it more easily understandable, if you think it's okay to buy white bread, then you were going to go to the store and make your purchase of white bread. Now that white bread was manufactured by somebody, it was put together by somebody who got the grains for that bread from somebody, who got the seeds for the grains for that bread from somebody else, who and then the field was taken care of by somebody else. All of these people were affected by the thought that you had that white bread is good for you, and the action that you took as a result of that to go to the store and buy the white bread. And all those people have people that they are affecting by the choices that they are making. And all of the people that are affected by them are affecting other people. And it continues and continues and continues and continues. How we think, how we feel, and how we act is affecting and affected by everything and everyone. There's no escaping it. We are one. And this is the world, the reality, the existence that we live within. Whether or not you believe that there is a God, a higher being, who is overseeing everything or not, is not necessarily something you are going to be able to get a definitive answer for. So in our quest to keep it simple, sweetheart, get to what we do know. Get back to the basics. And what we do know is that what we think, feel, and do has an effect on everything and everyone. So there's some merit to the notion that we should be consciously aware of the thoughts, feelings, and actions that we are taking, that we should be consciously aware of our abilities to respond in life and how we choose to do that. Okay. Another concept which is very popular and is an offshoot of our unity consciousness and our oneness, our belonging to one another, is the idea of reflections. We are all reflections of one another is a common statement that you hear. We are one another's mirrors. And that can get, again, quite confusing and complicated when we start to put more things into that statement. For somebody who is very dedicated to wanting to be the best that they can be, to wanting to be love, and to wanting to be able to see where it is that they're not being loved so that they can heal themselves, so that they can face these fears and do what is necessary to let them go and transcend them. Being consciously aware of our reflections can get a little bit confusing. We can see people, for example, in the street and start looking and saying, okay, I'm seeing this person and what they are emanating to me is X, Y, and Z, and I better go and look at what that is saying about myself and what I am seeing with respect to how that reflects within me. Sometimes, when you see someone else, the only reflection that you're seeing is a reflection of another human being. It is a reflection of another choice as to how to be human. It's not necessarily a reflection of something within you specifically outside of the fact that they are another human being. So when we say that someone else is our mirror or someone else is a reflection of us, before diving so deeply into looking for how everything parallels and what the special messages are, we want to take a step back. We want to take a step out of the analysis and allow for ourselves to just see what comes to us naturally without going after it and trying to figure it all out. Which takes us into the next concept, which is intuition, but also a statement that we hear often, which is that we should be feeling as opposed to thinking. We should be putting our emphasis on our hearts instead of our minds, which is kind of like difficult and strange, because even the feelings that we're feeling, when they are recognized and acknowledged, it is through a process that is cognizant. It is a cognitive process by which we are acknowledging our feelings. We are using our thinking to know our feeling. So it's kind of difficult to get out of the thinking per se stage, being cognizant of your feelings. If we are wanting to listen to our heart, we are using our minds to do so, right? Understand. It's not so much when you hear people say, don't use your mind or don't think, use your heart, feel. It's not so much that you shouldn't be thinking per se. It's that you shouldn't be analyzing. You shouldn't be questioning. You shouldn't be going into intense contemplation about any certain subject. If you want to know what the best thing for you to do in any certain circumstance is to let go of the analytical thinking and allow yourself to feel, to let the feelings, does this feel right? Does this feel wrong? To be that which is your greatest focus. So your thought of this feels right should supersede your questioning of, well, this feels right, but then again, I'm not sure if, and maybe, and well, because that is generally speaking your fear coming into play. When we are questioning what we intuitively know through when you feel that it is right, which you cognizantly acknowledge, to start to question, contemplate, and analyze is where people are trying to say to stop going into that aspect of our thinking or our mind, and to allow love, to allow trust to be that which we allow the focus of our mind. I hope that makes sense. It's a huge message that is on the scene right now with respect to consciousness and ascension and transcendence. So I really do hope that that was explained well. It's not thinking outright. It's not your mind that you need to get rid of. It's that you need to stop questioning what you feel intrinsically to be right. You need to start trusting in what you feel is absolutely right, which is your intuition. Your intuitive voice is more of an overwhelming, yes, this is good, no, this is not good. And sometimes it comes with this magnificent inspiration to do X, Y, and Z, to say A, B, and C, and again, flow with that as opposed to questioning it. It's kind of something like what I do with our show here. I know what I'm going to be speaking about, but I am not working off of a script. I am trusting that whatever is flowing through me is appropriate for the subject of the show of the day. So I am, and I'm not thinking, because the thoughts that are coming, but I'm not going through an intense analysis of what it is that I'm thinking. I'm trusting, because I'm coming from a place of love, that which I am sharing will be appropriate to what I'm wanting to share, to what my intentions for the show are, and for the comprehension of those who are listening. So that's pretty much what that line says. And there's a quote that I repeat continuously because I love it, which my dad said to me when I was a very young girl, which is, think with your heart and feel with your mind. So that really, to me, sums up the entire concept that we've been hearing so much about with respect to getting out of the mind and into the heart, to feeling instead of thinking. We're still using all of our faculties. Nobody is going to suddenly slice out their mind. It doesn't go anywhere. It's part of who we are, and to try and slice it out is to try and slice out a part of who we are. It is to have all of who we are working as a beautiful unit that is symbiotically functioning through and for the purposes of love. Okay. Divine messages. So this kind of relates to reflections. We've been hearing a lot about the numbers that we see on digital clocks, like 11, 11, 12, 12, and the different meanings that are in those numbers. And people then start looking for meanings everywhere, and the truth of the matter is that there's meanings everywhere. There really is. And if we look for them, we can find them. You know, you can be walking down the street, see a license plate, and there's meaning there. You can look up at the clock and see the time, and there's meaning there. You get a phone call from someone and you say certain words, and there's meaning there. There is meaning everywhere. But again, we don't want to get so wrapped up in seeking out meaning in everything that we get into a state of complete and utter confusion because we're trying to figure out what everything means, as opposed to allowing the flow, getting back to intuition again. If you happen to catch something on the clock and it strikes you, then allow yourself to be open to what comes up from that feeling, that strong feeling. There's no need to go looking for the meaning. The meaning will come to you when it needs to come to you, if it's required to come to you. When we start going looking, the same thing with the reflections, it can get confusing. And we can bombard ourselves with trying to figure things out when there's really not much to be figuring out. And we are making things more complicated than they need to be. There's a lot of talk right now around the word authenticity. Authenticity means being true to whatever it is that we're speaking about, authentic. Generally speaking, when we hear authenticity spoken now with regards to consciousness, it is being our authentic selves. And generally speaking, those speaking to authenticity and ourselves are equating us being authentic to being love. That authenticity of the human being and of all that is, ever was, or will be is actually love. Agape, or unconditional, or divine love. It's not an attached love. It's not an I own this, you're mine, this is mine, that's yours, this is right, this is wrong. It is an acceptance of simply that which is. It is a flowing with. It is a detached objectivity from a perspective that is accepting and allowing, from a perspective that is loving. So, and again, not loving in this passionate ownership manner. There's no negativity or positivity. There's acceptance. Is it true that in our authentic state, we are love? That's definitely what I believe. Scientifically, when we are happy versus sad, love versus fear, stress, worry, anxiety, any negative emotions, our overall state of homeostasis or optimal health is greater when, again, we are coming from a position of love versus one of fear, from happiness versus one of sadness. But whether or not that's true, that our authentic state is love, the reality is not only is our health, our overall physical body, mind, spirit, soul in a better place, but we all know that we feel better when we are being loving versus being not loving. So again, in wanting to be able to ascend, to achieve enlightenment, to transcend our fears, there are a lot of big questions out there in the world. There's a lot of mystery in our world. And we can get caught up in that and forget about what the initial objective is, which is for ourselves to be the best that we can be. To be authentic, whether or not we believe that that equals being love, we know that being loving is something that we all prefer to being not loving. And so to put our efforts into so being in and of itself is simply a good idea for self and everybody else around us. Because anybody who is around us is affected by the choices that we are making. So again, there are big questions out there, and for those like myself whose life is dedicated to asking those big questions and delving into the mysteries, enjoy, go for it, but let's not get lost in those contemplations that we lose sight of the simplicity of that which we are seeking to achieve with respect to ascending consciousness or enlightenment. Okay. So I've been mentioning the words ascension and transcendence a lot, and they are also two words that we hear a lot and are also can get complicated and confusing. You know, we hear ascension and some people imagine that we are drifting, floating up into the heavens and flying with the stars, and we are ascending out of the physical form. And with respect to transcendence, people again see people sitting in a yogic position, floating off of the ground. This is not to say that these two words don't relate to that and that we won't achieve these things. But in the here and the now, as nobody is floating around anywhere, we are continuously transcending and ascending. So in order to transcend, that we may ascend, we don't need to be going to the extent of seeing ourselves floating amongst the stars. Again, not to say that we won't and we can't. But everything occurs in steps, you know, baby steps, one step at a time. When we transcend something, essentially what we are doing is we are going into a step that is a little bit better than where we were before. Where we were before, as a universal family, a global family, a species, has been in a place of fear consciousness. We've been operating on an overall basis from a fear, flight or fight mentality. It is a mentality that sees us as being separate from each other, as being individuals who need to compete with one another in order to survive. We are transcending out of that thinking paradigm. We are moving up from this thinking paradigm or this mindset into love consciousness, into a unity consciousness, which is that we are not competing with everybody. We are collaborating with everyone. We don't need to fight to survive. We need to co-create collaboratively together to survive as a whole. It's not one or the other. It's everyone. So what we are seeking to transcend is the way that we have been thinking and therefore feeling and acting subsequently as a result thereof about life itself, about each other, about self. And when we transcend, when we elevate our thinking from separation to unity, we are ascending, we are rising into an expanded level of thinking, of feeling, of acting, of consciousness. We are always transcending and ascending. Enlightenment is not a one-stop shop show. It's forever. Our world is infinite. And when I say our world, I shouldn't say our world, I should say existence is infinite. And as a result, we are continuously having new experiences that are coming into our experience. And each experience provides for us an opportunity to respond. And each one is new, and therefore there is a potential for new information, which allows for greater wisdom, which is enlightening. Enlightening is having the information, more information, understanding the information that we have, accepting the information as opposed to fighting it. So we are in a relaxed, comfortable place of acceptance of that which is. It is not some angel dinging some bell and wings growing out of our backs and us flying up in the heavens. It's becoming more authentic. It's becoming more loving, more kind, more considerate, more compassionate. It is becoming more love than fear. That's all. Which again is not to say that we won't suddenly sprout wings out of our backs, because in the infinite potential of possibilities, we might. Who knows? But sticking with what we know in the now, keeping it simple. What we are wanting to transcend is the emotional immaturity of our fight or flight mindset. That we may inhabit, embody a mindset that is based on co-creative collaboration, on unity in love. Okay, I hope that one was well communicated and received. I think we have time for at least one more, but before I go into that, I just put up onto the screen, if you just look above my head here, on our Being Love TV channel, which is what we are broadcasting through right now, the Radiating Love Show. We have another show called Soul's Talking Brain, which I do with my starry soul sister here, Aline Ohanessian. It airs on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern. And next Wednesday, April the 10th, we are so thrilled to be welcoming William Whitecloud, who wrote the book The Lost Shaman. And I think he also wrote The Magician's Way, if I remember correctly. The book, The Lost Shaman, I read and enjoyed thoroughly, and I simply am so enthusiastically anticipating sharing with you the magic of his book and, of course, the wisdom that William will be sharing. So please do make sure to mark your calendars and to tune in on Wednesday, April 10th at 7 p.m. Eastern to Soul's Talking Brain right here on Being Love TV. So, I think I'm just, as you're seeing me looking, I have some notes here about the different things that I wanted to speak about today, and I have a whole list of things, but I think based on our timing, we have time for one more. And that is dimensions, which I think is another big one and confusing to a lot of people. How many dimensions are there? You know, we hear people saying that there are 5 dimensions. We're ascending into 5th dimensional consciousness. There are 12 dimensions. There are 24 dimensions. How many dimensions are there? And what does it mean, dimension? What does it mean when I go from being in fourth dimension consciousness to fifth dimensional consciousness? Am I suddenly going to grow wings and start flying around with the stars? Well, maybe. But again, keeping it simple, sweetheart, dimension is just an expanded perspective. It's like when you are walking up a mountain, the further up the mountain you go, and when you look down upon where you're coming from, the more you can see. Each dimension gives you more information. It expands your perception of what you're able to see. Sometimes it actually diminishes it, and I will give you the example of that right now. So, to bring dimensions into the physical and make it easy, although it will come to the infinite, but you'll see how that all happens. This is my physical body, which you can see. On the dimension of physicality, this is one dimension of perception. We can see it. It's clear. It's evidenced. Okay. We also exist on multiple dimensions within our physicality. So if I were to strip away the skin on me, there is a dimension of my existing, as is yours, underneath my skin that we don't see, but it exists, right? And that's the blood and the vessels, and there's organs. And then if we go further into another dimension of existence, are the cells within the blood, the organs, so on and so forth, which we don't see. And if we go further still into those cells, there's the neutrons and the protons and the electrons, which again we don't see. And if we go further yet still, there's a whole lot of empty space, or at least what seems to be empty space, but actually isn't empty space. And we can't see anything, but there again is yet another dimension. To be able to look left and right is one perceptual dimension of reality. To be able to look up and down is another perceptual dimension of reality. It is not any more complicated than that. What we are choosing to do in choosing to become more conscious is expanding our reality into ever-increasing dimensions. How many dimensions are there? Infinite! Infinite! There aren't 5, there aren't 12, there aren't 20, there are infinite dimensions. Because life is infinitely spiraling, ever smaller and ever bigger. And depending upon where on that ladder you land, is the dimensional reality that you happen to be perceiving through in that moment. And to say that we are only ever perceiving through one dimension of reality is a fallacy as well. What people are saying regarding fifth dimensional consciousness is that we are going from seeing things as being solid unto themselves to being able to see the connectedness of the energy between everything that is. So things become, and here's another term, holographic. And what holographic means essentially is that you wouldn't just be seeing me right now as this solid being here, and I'm only here, but you would be seeing the energy that is radiating off of me. And so I become holographic or more 3D because you will see how the energy in me is actually going out far beyond the perceived solidity of my body. You will also see that that energy is going to interact with your energy and the energy of everything else that is around. And so the reality that we are seeing becomes what they are saying is holographic. It's the word that they are using to express what that is, this new dimension. So to make it even more simple, if you were looking at a painting, which is flat against the wall, you would actually start to see the painting in 3D. and you would see the painting coming to life, per se, in that you would be seeing it coming off the canvas as though it were a 3D building, because the energy of the painting you would be seeing as it is radiating outward. We would be seeing the energy, the quintessential foundational substance of everything that is. And then a different dimension beyond the holographic would be to see the actual energy particles vibrating, each one of them independently, which, for example, I don't know that it happens so much today with today's television sets, but when I was younger, if you would turn the TV on or off, the entire screen would suddenly become all pixelated. So the next step beyond the holographic, which is still kind of seeing it's a solid expression, would be to see each of the solid projection of the energy. You would start to see each of the individual energy molecules that are making up that projection. And then you would go further into that, and further into that, and further into that, and so on and so forth. Do the dimensions continue to grow, or exist, or they simply are all the time, and we're being able to consciously acknowledge them? So again, don't get hung up on whether or not you're in the right dimension. You're exactly where you need to be, and your perception is expanding exactly as it should be, naturally. And we are all transcending out of fear consciousness all of our negative emotions based upon fight or flight mentality into an ascended reality based in love consciousness, which is recognizing that we are connected to everyone, taking responsibility for our abilities to respond, owning how we are, who we are. It's all occurring naturally. It's flowing. Just be conscious as much as possible in your day-to-day lives of being as loving as you can be. That is the most important thing that any one of us can do. So everything we discussed today, all of the different explanations for different concepts relating to spirituality, conscious awareness, enlightenment, ascension, transcendence, all come down at the end to being as loving as we can be, to letting go of the negative emotions that we have been conditioned to feel and to hold on to, and rising out of them, or allowing them to be embraced within our arms of love. So in your day-to-day life, the most important thing and the best thing that any one of us can do is everything we can to be love. And if there's things that are confusing, conflicting, always come back to that simple premise of being love. And if, and again, because the term love connotes this passionate thing, I like to say agape or divine love. If you are in a position where the emotion, the negative emotions are overtaking, and being lovey-dovey is not something that you are feeling possible, then not acting on the negative emotions is step one. Finding a way to express them in a safe space is where you begin. Because being love is not about being passionate and lovey-dovey. It's about being in a state of calm, relaxed acceptance, of trust that whatever is for our highest happiness. That whatever is happening is for our greatest good. And though we may not like it, we may not agree with it, we may not understand it, being in a state of neutrality is much better than acting on the aggravation, frustration, irritation, or any other negative emotions that may arise because of this state of unknowing. And then to be able to get into a state of being loving, of facing the very situation that ignites the fear, the fight-flight mentality from a loving position, is the aim of our ascension. So step by step, day by day, we are definitely, most certainly on our way. And with that, I shall light me some sage. Thank you all so very much for joining me here today and sharing in your energy. Please do share the show with all that you love and know. That's what this is all about, is assisting as many as we can to release ourselves of the torment of negativities and emotional immaturities, to grasp hold of this phenomenal opportunity to be love, to grow, to heal together with one another. So thank you for sharing, thank you for being, thank you for caring. In La Kesha La Ken, namaste. I will see you all April 10th, Wednesday at 7 p.m. on Soul's Talking Brain. Implicitly be.